Hello and welcome back to Automotive Logistics and Supply Chain Live North America. I'm Rich Logan and thank you so much for joining me for this important session on electric vehicle supply chains, Mexico on a charge. The global automotive industry is transforming at pace, and electrification and alternatively fueled vehicles are of course a major part of the revolution. Even in the last few weeks, the pace of the transformation has greatly accelerated for North America, with new direction of the Biden administration and announcements and investments from the region's leading OEMs committing to electric vehicles and building a sustainable future sooner than previously targeted. This will have huge implications not only for the OEMs, but crucially the region's supply base and the service providers. I'll shortly be joined by Alex Katsouris, Director of Automotive and Electronics at Europartners. But before that, I'd like to share a short video clip where we recorded yesterday from a session with Guido Vildoso from IHS Markit, specifically talking about the emergence of EVs and its impact for Mexico. You will of course be able to check out the full video of Guido's excellent market analysis on the Automotive Logistics website in the coming days. But for now, roll the tape.
The impacts that we have as a result of emissions. What are we going to see beyond safe, which was the last set of emissions legislation that we saw last year, permeated by the Trump administration. We'll have to have a better understanding of where CARB legislation, California Air Resource Board, goes in the future, ZEV2, and what the mandate is going to be if we anticipate that the Biden administration is going to allow for 177 states, meaning all of those states aligned with California emissions, to be freed from having to be enforced by the federal mandate, meaning that they can use California as a benchmark. And as a result, we anticipate that electrification is certainly going to happen within Mexico. It will be a combination of primarily two different batches. We will see primarily mild hybrids being built in Mexico, but also electric vehicles, the first of which is already in production, the Mustang Mach-E. So Mexico will certainly follow trend, but needless to say, if you start to look at the volumes here, roughly about 1 million units further down the road in a market that is roughly about 4 million units, only about a fourth of it, but that is really tied to what we are seeing from a U.S. perspective, where the U.S. is going to move at a slower pace when it comes to electrification than the rest of the world, where relative to Europe or China, we don't have a benchmark that is as strict as those regions.
Great. Well, I think that sets the scene, and you saw the numbers there, the figures, the opportunities that await. But without further ado, I'd like to invite Alex to join me on the stage. Of course, Alex, based in Mexico, Alex and his team have been on the front line supporting industry throughout the COVID crisis, and importantly, have been accelerating their own EV supply chain knowledge and capabilities in order to support the industry as it transforms. Alex, welcome.
Thank you very much, Rich. Very well said. We're on the front line. That's why we're here today. So thank you first of all for the opportunity. We're going to talk today about a few topics to do with EV supply chain in Mexico, the challenges, the optimization, and how we're positioned within all of that. So a reason that we've taken the opportunity is because we're a freight forwarder dealing with about 400 automotive parts suppliers and OEMs on a monthly basis for North America. So I'm not a market analyst. We're going to touch a couple of the market insights, but we can give a good opinion from the experiences that we have today with our clients, some of which are on here, and other companies that we're directly, indirectly involved with. So we've got good visibility on projects, and we'd just like to share some of that insight. So if we have a quick look, we're going to start off with that, a couple of the insights of the market. If we can go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we're going to go through these different parts of the presentation. A few of the market insights, which is a bit of a recap on things that we've heard over the last 24 hours, and expanding on some of those comments from Senor Vidloso of IHS Mexico market. Sorry. EV project development in Mexico, what we're experiencing with our clients directly, the logistics challenges for both those clients and for us as a logistics provider, and some of the solutions, some of the core capabilities that we're having to develop within our organization as a flexible partner, working through some of this crisis, through some of the storm with our clients. So if we have a look quickly at those market insights, moving on to the next, please. We've heard it. I think Ford are leading the way as a major OEM, with the confirmation of the Ford Mach-E in Cuautitlán, which is on the outskirts of Mexico City. I think this is an important project. However, we look at Mexico as an EV supplier, producing the batteries, producing the vehicles in Mexico alone. Ford have a huge history in Mexico. And I think this was quite a statement from them. So I'm excited to see that project is something that we've already been involved with parts supply from plants in the US, also within Mexico, and is definitely gaining some momentum. So exciting to be part of that. GM and Honda, the joint venture that's announced for 2023 in Ramos. Ramos, for those of you who don't know, it's a key area for mass production of SUVs and pickups. They've been very successful in that production. It's an area where we've experienced a lot of growth as a company ourselves. And there's talks outside of GM and the joint venture there of other OEMs who are currently there, maybe delving into that kind of format also. And supposedly, behind the scenes, there's a lot of trade secrets. It's not gone unsaid, but there are supposedly 9 projects for EV right now, directly in Mexico. So we question, where does that position Mexico? How competitively for any EV supplier? I don't personally. The perspective I'm coming from is I don't think it's just about if the batteries and the cars are assembled here. What I'd like to touch on today in this presentation is how we're involved with a lot of these tier suppliers, where we're seeing definitely an increase in projects that are related with the EVs, with EV production, and that's the interesting side. In the end, it's gonna come to boil down to our OEM strategy, and we know the external market factors, whether it be politics, like we were hearing just now. But it's gonna and profitability of those cars that are made. Today, Mexico is a powerhouse in the automotive production. So they 10 years ago, they were number 12 in vehicle production, and now they're about 5th. So that infrastructure is there. The tier suppliers are there. It wasn't just the OEMs that came over. We have continual foreign investment here, which now drives. It's driven change. It's created a market where over the last few years, all the players involved have had to adapt to that continual change. So you're dealing with a market that's used to that kind of dynamic, and that's why I think it positions itself well also for the EV, for what's to come with the EV sector. Again, we go back to it. There's no battery factories here yet. However, there was a very interesting sign of the investment of Ganfeng in Sonora, which is the recycling of the batteries. So again, does that have something to do with, or is it a very good signal to do with the OEM that's currently in Sonora? I think so, but let's see. I think it's very well positioned as well for the Californian market. So if we go on quickly to the next slide, please. Thank you. So EV project development in Mexico. As I mentioned, I think this is really a case of how are the tier suppliers reacting. You may question why Alex, you as a freight forwarder, as a logistics provider, as a time critical specialist, are you talking about this, a general insight into the market? We build on the data that of the shipments that we're working with our clients. The better understanding we have of that data, of the projects they're involved with, the better and faster we can respond to them and their needs. So that's how important it is of our understanding of the market and the evolution of the market and how our clients are evolving with that market. So right from the top with the OEMs down to every single tier, everybody is competing for a part of the pie, to put it like that. And what are the main challenges that they're faced with? They need to be competitive. They need to have a competitive product. It needs to be price competitive. It needs to get out there quickly. They need to be able to show that service through the logistics they're providing to get it to the lines quickly, or get it to, if it's a prototype or a presentation, get it there quickly with no challenge, no problems in front, right? So we're working with those tier suppliers, and the tier suppliers are faced with four main areas, four main issues and challenges. Their products, they need to be attending one of these areas. It's connectivity, it's the infotainment within the vehicle, the mobility, and eventually shared mobility. So whether we're talking again about the assembly of the electric vehicle or whether it's the battery, all these tier suppliers have these challenges. The challenges that are going to come for all of us as users, as car buyers, and we're picky customers, right? We all want in a certain color, in a certain climate, in a certain environment, the way we choose to watch films nowadays, all of these things, the way you're recording, taking photos, etc. All of these things are an influence on how the driver's experience or the travel experience will be molded in the future, and this is how our clients need to be attending as well. So what does that mean? That means a huge increase in research and development. Mexico is well positioned, even better positioned than it was a few years ago in research and development. There are about 300 research and development sites now, with all major tier ones, leading tier ones of the industry, as well as the OEMs. Again, with that foreign investment, a lot of prototypes are shipped out, so our export of prototypes is up. And again, that's another area that we're attending, the trend that we're seeing. One of the other trends that we're seeing is today the EVs of the market, who are starting off the trend, they are overseas. But what we're seeing with them is aggressive ramp ups. Even the companies that are not out to market yet, we're seeing high demand. And when I talk about high demand, it could be daily chartering of aircraft for a week, for 2 weeks, to make sure that they get to a certain point in their production. This is just a signal of how competitive the market is looking to get some of that market share. And on the other hand, we see that the clients are looking at nearshoring. Well, they continue to be nearshoring, but looking at relocation strategies of some products, some plants, some production lines. So we're involved in that relocation in some parts. That could be national, it could be international. We're mainly talking within the North American region. Okay, so I think with some of those points that we mentioned, we'll go across to a poll, Rich, if you can help us out, where we're interested to see your participation. Rich, if you'd like to introduce the poll.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alex. And I can see we've got lots to get stuck into. But yeah, brief intermission with a poll that I've just launched. So that's on the right-hand side of your screen. You can access that in the chat function of the platform. The poll: what percentage of your manufacturing and/or logistics service projects are related to electric vehicles? Now, I haven't specified, but I would specify North American projects only, covering Canada, Mexico, and the USA. So options are up to 25%, 26 to 50%, 51 to 75%, and 76 to 100%. So just trying to get an understanding of the market in terms of how much of your capacity is going towards EV projects in North America right now. We'll keep that running while Alex continues and address your answers. And please also do continue to pop your questions in the chat as well. We'll address those in the Q&A following this. So back to you, Alex.
Thank you, Rich. Good. We look forward to seeing the answers then. Okay, so moving on to the next, please. If we look at some of the challenges, as I mentioned, this is challenges for our clients, the parts suppliers, the OEMs, but also us as logistics providers, which I think is at least half the audience today. So I think we've heard some of these topics already, but going over it again, capacity, we're in the eye of the storm. Sea freight, even over the road, trucking out of Mexico, and that links with the second point of Mexican exports. These are two of the challenges that we see with external factors, and what I'd say is more kind of controllable factors would be the second 2 points, which are communication and partnerships. But starting with those first 2 points, capacity and Mexican exports, we all know for a fact, sea freight, sky high rates right now, scarce equipment, departures with delays of 17 to 14 days. And this forecast is right now, it looks to be to at least June time, especially with scarcity of equipment of 40-foot high cubes. Demurrage fees, these are discussions that we're having to have as well with clients. Some sea liners are looking to take away certain number of days of demurrage fees. If you've got them free for 14 or 21 days, they could be coming down. So these are just some of the issues of topics that we need to be discussing with clients, and that everybody should be aware of how to best resolve these situations. In Europe, I think it's surcharges of equipment imbalance right now. The low water surcharge that we saw very present last year continues in the River Inn right now as well. Emergency bunker surcharges. So wherever you are in the globe, there are challenges. And with air freight, we know 40% less capacity due to passengers and the COVID crisis. Do we see this increasing? Yes, it should do, slowly but surely, but we're up against it. We're up against it today, and that'll, in the end, with better visibility with the clients, better communication, we can be attending these challenges together. The other challenge is we're coming into the RFQ season. So the planning for all these things for planned freight is at a vital time, and there needs to be understanding and communication for the volatility of the market with rates. And going over to road very quickly, but not to get stuck on the point, with the EV market and the development within North America, we've seen new routes, we've seen new players in different parts of what is the traditional automotive corridor of North America. They're not the traditional routes. So this can add cost. It's also been a big challenge for many providers, no matter what the size of carriers, of freight forwarders, to source the equipment needed. And then we mix that in today with the situation that we're in the eye of the storm, and right now equipment availability is even more scarce because a lot of these trucks are being taken up now to move some of the sea freight that's coming into Los Angeles. So that's the situation with capacity and some of the Mexican exports. On the communication side, and the following point, partnerships, it's the clearest. I think it's one of the biggest takeaways that we've heard, and especially from the logistics providers within the conference the last 24 hours or so. We need clearer communication. If that's speed of response over the phone, if it's through WhatsApp, like we've heard, if it's through systems, how are our systems communicating? The better the communication, the better quality, the more people can team up, companies can team up. And it's not a coincidence. We're in uncharted waters. We're seeing products evolve. And that's why the OEMs, some of the largest companies, the largest companies in this industry are teaming up and they're doing joint ventures. It's going to be better to team up and use expertise from both sides rather than every one horse trying to win the race. So we can't stress enough with our clients right now the importance of these partnerships, and it will be through clear, concise communication. So with some of it, it'll be either way. What do we need to do? The challenges are we need to monitor these risks, continue monitoring of what's going on right now, monitoring of the risks of the evolution of their supply chains and the parts they're sourcing as well as producing, and the lines they're going to, and that's all through this data collection, data analysis that some of our guests also commented on today. And with that, it helps us predict the interruptions that can come. And as a time-critical supplier, even though we almost welcome some of the interruptions because we focus on those kind of solutions, at the end of the day, we want a happy client that we know that we can be attending from the different areas, and maybe we can be giving them a safe air freight solution rather than having to pay possibly double, triple, 4 times the price of putting it on a charter. So it's all about having that flexibility, proposing those logistics strategies and working together. I think the importance here is the flexibility, that kind of startup mindset of how to really attend and address those issues that you're dealing with the company. So if we go on to the next, please. It's about those solutions. So what have we done ourselves as a company? And we're definitely seeing some of our competitors do it too, but I can tell you a bit better about what we're doing. We've had to increase the slots, pre-booked slots with the air capacity. I can tell you that's gone up tenfold over the last year. So we're talking about major hubs out of China, major hubs of Europe, but also looking for alternative solutions. And definitely we've had an increase of bookings of NFO services, next flight outs, in order to make sure product is to line on time. The alternative airports coming into Mexico, so that inbound cargo, where is it released? We're having to look a lot at the bonded cargo solutions. Maybe that's flying into Mexico but releasing in Querétaro, or Guadalajara into releasing in Bajío. There's many different solutions. It's a case of looking at the supply chain, the timing, the risks involved, and how we can make that more efficient for our clients. Charter availability. It's an area that obviously everybody needs to avoid for the costs it can represent. But when it comes to the crunch, we know it's a better solution to get that product to market. So it's all about the visibility right now. It's where are those aircraft? There's definitely been a surge in demand. And it's about having those relationships, understanding where the aircraft is. Where is it this week? If we're talking about overseas charters, then where is it this week? Where will it be next week? How can we utilize that space, that capacity, as much as possible, and plan and give some focus with clients when they're seeing certain risks and interruptions with the supply chains. And then finally, going on to accelerating that use of technology. Everybody in the world, all organizations have had to accelerate the use of technology. We're one of the companies also doing that. On one side, it's how user-friendly is the technology that we're providing, making sure that people can book and services through apps that we've created. So for OBC, we've got an app for onboard couriers. Clients that use onboard couriers regularly, logging into our app and making their reservation of the courier, they can track the whole operation through the app, and then we can bill them respectively. The connectivity with our suppliers and trucking companies. This is especially a challenge within Mexico, and will continue to be a challenge, and will continue to be of more importance as we deal with the EV products that are going into electric vehicles. Sorry. Why? For the high value of these products. So we need that connectivity with trucking companies. Mexico is not the same level as Europe and the US today with that connectivity, but it's something that we're doing. We're working with local trucking companies, making it better controlled, a network of where we are controlling a network of trucking companies for clients that are overseas, and they have one administration center. And finally, the visibility of performance and spending. So we know cost is always going to be sensitive, and especially with new product launches. And there's definitely a lot of concern around EVs and batteries for the cost of the cars today. So if we're giving continual updates and platforms and customer portals to our clients where they can see these KPIs and the spending, it increases visibility and helps the performance and partnerships with clients. So they're just some of the key areas that we're working on ourselves, the key capacities. Rich, I think it'd be a good time to open up the conversation and look at any questions that you've got, as well as the audience, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Alex. And a couple of comments straight off the bat. You claimed not to be an analyst. I'm not so sure. There's certainly one inside there. And what a wealth of knowledge on the Mexican markets, and a valuable connection for anyone of our audience. So some really fascinating insights. Some speculation as well, which is always juicy to hear what's coming. So we'll test you in a couple of months' time to see how many of those have come to the fore. But thanks so much for sharing. Let's check in on the poll. So we're going to share the results from the poll, please. Okay, so we asked the audience what percentage of your manufacturing and/or logistics service projects are related to electric vehicles. And we can see quite clearly there that the overwhelming majority, you can see they're still coming through live as well. The overwhelming majority is very small, so between 0 and 25%, which just sort of goes to show you where we are really in terms of electrification in the North America region. Although, as I mentioned at the beginning, it really has been accelerated. And as Alex mentioned, a number of those projects about to come online in the coming years. So watch this space, and I'm sure if we ran that poll again in a year's time or so, the answer will be very different. Alex, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think so. We're definitely in that first category also. I can't avoid that. Definitely towards the higher end of those numbers. And I think it's, where as a service provider, where we will have a focus and making sure that we're balancing the strategy. But just going back to the position, the competitiveness of Mexico, which is one of the main questions that you posed to me before this presentation, Rich. We're talking about, when we're talking about Mexico, Mexico continues to be this automotive powerhouse. It's the infrastructure is there. And whether there is a huge EV focus of the assembly of the vehicles here or not, we will see increased demand of those products, the supply of those products from manufacturers that are in Mexico. I'm sure of it. So those numbers are most definitely going to increase over the next few years. We heard from the market analyst that there's about 25% of projects of the projects in the assembly in Mexico will be EV. But I think we could hope to see some of those answers change definitely in the next couple of years, just for what we're talking about. Some of that foreign investment, exports going up, and that I think everybody be a lot more involved, especially if it's not even directly in the automotive sector, but some related industries.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have to get you back in 5 years when we're in the 5th year of this show to answer that again. So we're running quite close to time, but just keen to pick your brains and keep the conversation going for a few moments more. Just in terms of your perspective, being on the ground in Mexico, clearly well connected with numerous OEMs and tier suppliers. Yeah. How stable is the market right now? Certainly compared to 6 months ago, and is there a trend that you're seeing? What can we expect in 6 months as well?
Sure. Okay. So Stable, I wouldn't say it's the word. I really wouldn't. I think I'm not shy to that, and I think a lot of clients here are realists as well as myself. It's not stable, it's unpredictable, and we're all having to deal with it. So we're in the eye of the storm, like we keep mentioning, right? As I say, as a time critical supplier, we it's put us in a very good situation in that sense. We've got growth of number of clients with us, activating with us new services. Retention rate has grown. Particular clients volume has grown. So in the logistics side, there's you could say there's certain stability. I think there's going to be some peaks and troughs like we experienced last year. I still think that we're in a recovery period. However, with the other factors now of capacity challenges, that, as I say, we're seeing the forecast for at least 6 months, 9 months of impact. It's not going to be a stable environment. I think, if anything, if we can apply that word to anything, it's probably attitude. Attitude within the market of our customers, of the users, the service providers. We're not all in panic mode. We're in survival mode, but we're not in panic mode anymore. We can see, and we're working with clients and together in the industry, sharing information and understanding how to attend this better. So there's more acceptance. It needs flexibility, it needs quick response time, but I think that's the best way to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, and I appreciate you not mixing your words there. There's a very clear message there for our audience, not least in Mexico, but around the world, and perhaps looking at a potentially more positive note as we look to kind of wrap up. Yesterday in the session with Nissan Mexicana, we touched briefly on electric vehicles, their plans and their preparations, and what was clear from that discussion was the need for industry collaboration, whether it be standardization of and best practices across OEM tier suppliers and the service providers. In your position, do you think there's enough knowledge in the Mexico supply base and service provider space at this time? And do you see opportunities to collaborate and ideally work with Nissan to develop the EV supply chains? Sure.
The knowledge and the experience is here. The skilled workers are here. That flexibility, adaptability to change, as well is exactly what we've seen over the last 10 years in this marketplace. So to answer your question very briefly, I'm aware of time as well. Yes, I do, Richard. I think it's great to hear the voice of the people of Nissan and putting importance on that, because it's exactly what we see as suppliers to them. But yeah, I think the setup, the infrastructure and everything is set up in place to be able to develop it. It's whether the political factors, the strategy of the OEMs are really going to focus on that. But the capability there, and geographic location, the natural resources, it's all set up. It's about how much is it going to be invested and how much they're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, fantastic. So I like that resilience and that sense of optimism, and perhaps that's a place to leave it. Alex, thank you so much for sharing your insights and saving me from having to say certain locations in Mexico and probably making a mess of it. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, we'll get you back in a few years to test you on your predictions.
Thank you very much, Rich. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Alex. And to our audience, thanks so much for your participation. What a session. Where to go from now? Well, stay right there because the content continues. Don't hold back. We're coming at you with more. So stay tuned and we'll be with you back shortly.